exposed to, everything from our thoughts to the frequencies and cephies that we have around us, to the food we eat, we can completely change the course trajectory of our cellular health and of our entire physiology. And that's what's so exciting about it. So thank you, Mom, for teaching me that stuff. I did have my prodigal child era when I got to college, so just so we're on the same page, I know what it feels like to have an unbalanced microbiome and be craving food all day and eat and eat and eat and never feel satisfied and eat an entire, well, actually, I can still eat an entire supreme pizza, but I don't do that often. But like to eat, just eat food and feel tired after meals and get sick and not feel better right away. So I did have that era, and then that's a big reason why I'm back here working with my mom, is I was like, wow, I really didn't realize what I had growing up. And so now I just can't wait to combine everything that I've been learning throughout my years of studies with her now to present this information. So that's a little bit about my background story and why I'm so excited to be here. So one last difference I am going to note, and we're going to be covering this more during the business building session, is Karen and I do have differences in the way that we work with our clients. So Karen is a holistic healthcare practitioner. She meets with people during consultations. She gives them like a half year's worth of information in one session, and they leave with like two pages of paper of like, hey, I need to be drinking golden milk tea and taking vitamin D and fish oil and practicing this breathing exercise and go see a fascia release expert, and they'll be empowered with all sorts of things they can do for the next 6 months of their lives, or until they come in for a check-in again, because she wants to look at their scan, let them know what they can change, leave them going home empowered with a whole list of things they can start today. I cater more to my personality type, which is, she's like type A, rule the world, get it all done. I'm over here like, give it to me in bite-sized pieces and follow up with me, because everything you say is going to last about 2 days, and then I'm going to need your help again. So I do coaching. So she does consulting. I do coaching. So with my people, I use a scanner a little bit differently than she does, because I might run an inner voice, and on a Wednesday night when someone can't fall asleep at night, and they just are like, they text me and they're like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I don't even know what to do. I'm like, hey, send me a 10-second clip of your voice. I'm going to run it through inner voice and send you some tunes to listen to it so you can fall asleep. And they're like, oh, great, thanks. So mine's a lot more interactive like that, but also I'll work with them for more regularly, stretched out over time. So that's just the difference between coaching and consulting. Some people prefer consulting because then you just like meet with them, they schedule their follow-up, you pay per appointment. With me, they pay by time frame. So I'm just letting you guys know there's a couple different ways to do this whole working with clients thing. My people sign up for a time frame, her people sign up for appointments. So just something to keep in mind coming into this. I don't know if that's helpful at all. There's a lot of different business models you can use. So awesome. Before we officially start our first section on quantum physics, there is one part of setting expectations I want to cover with all of you, and that is the legalities section. So if you can please open up to the second page of your packet, I'm going to check the notes section really quick, and we are going to go over legalities reminders. Very important. I'm just checking the chat section. Cool. So can I get one of those? Yeah. Oh, sure, this got one. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so many of you probably already know a lot of this, but it's a really good reminder. Since we are going to be practicing so many breakouts, I want you guys to practice this while you're practicing with each other. These are ways to protect yourself legally. As much as we can learn about natural health, we are, well, some of you might be, but most of us are not practicing medical doctors. And so we don't have the legal right to do certain things. And we should be careful with our language. And on top of that, I do want to mention, I actually love this part of going over this agreement with my clients because it empowers them. There's this quote that says, give a man medicine alone, and he will spend the rest of his life thinking that his health lies outside his own hands. Teach a man how his body works, and he will realize the path to health lies in his own hands. And I just love that principle, because the more you just rattle off things for someone to do, like, oh, take 2 tablets of fish oil morning and night, and do this and don't do that, the more you make their game plan for them, the more they're not going to feel empowered think that they forever have to seek a specialist for everything and not be standing in their power as much. So this part, I love going over this because I'm like, listen, like there is no doctor-patient relationship between us. My job is to tell you all the amazing things I've learned, and your job is to decide if it fits in your healing journey or not, if it fits in your game plan. So let's just review some of these. So the you cans. You can educate someone on how their body works. If you're looking to recommend specific products, it really depends what state you live in. Some states, and I totally meant to send this link out to all of you, so this will be one thing I do need to send. You can go online and check to see what the laws of your state are for how lenient you can be with your clients. Some states do allow you to give people specific nutrition and supplemental advice, even if you're not a registered dietitian or a certified nutritionist. Other states, you have to be a certified nutritionist or registered dietitian to give them specific advice. So there's only about 12 states that are really particular about it. But if you just want to be safe, because you don't know where you're Zooming someone, you don't always know where like your clients might be in different states. So if you just want to be on the safe side, these are different ways you can phrase recommendations so that you're not prescribing something. You can say, oh, something that's helped others with a similar concern is this. Like, oh, you have depression. Oh, you should probably, let's talk about your gut microbiome, because there's certain products that have helped replenish someone's gut microbiome so that they can actually make the neurotransmitters you need to be happy. So like, for example, I might really like the product Amare. Be like, yeah, something that's really helped people with with your situation is this product line Amare, because it helps give you the bacteria you need to synthesize serotonin. So you can say it like that. Historically speaking, cat's claw has really helped to support your adrenal glands. You know, like historically speaking, apricot kernel contains B17, which can help target certain cancer cells. So you can say it like that. What's made a big difference in my life, you can always share your story. You can share the stories of clients if you have their permission and if they remain anonymous. And then the ultimate, like just easy one is something to consider looking into is this. So that's just one way to protect yourself legally. You are allowed to teach them healthy lifestyle habits and how those habits make a difference in their life. You can absolutely verbally reiterate to them that there's no doctor-patient relationship, in addition to a disclaimer that they sign in the beginning. When it comes to HIPAA laws, who's heard of HIPAA laws? Okay. So what have you got? Let's hear from the audience real quick. What's like what's the point of HIPAA laws? Protection. Yes, privacy, protection. Yes, great set of standards to implement in the medical field. And so those actually, a lot of that applies to us. You can't legally collect someone's health information unless you store it locked up or in an encrypted file online. So there are certain online, if you choose to do all your documentation through the web, so like Google Premium, if you do like the Google Suite, that actually is HIPAA approved. If you do the HIPAA, if Google for Business, it's like $7 a month. But there's a whole list. If you look up HIPAA approved cloud storage services, there's one that's totally free that I set up for someone. Like, it's not Box. I have to check it out. But there's just different sources up there. If you collect it in handwriting, it just has to be in a locked filing cabinet. So Karen does handwritten things a lot of times. So she just keeps hers in file folders locked up in a filing cabinet in her office. Works great. So we just gotta get through this real quick, and then we can get on to the fun stuff. You can encourage them to see additional specialists. Who here loves referring your clients to someone who's gonna change their client's life? Yes, there you go. I honestly, hi, nice to see you in person. I honestly believe the best thing I've ever done for my clients is introduce them to someone else who's a therapist or a fascia release expert or an emotion code specialist and some type of like therapist who can give them the next level of help. So you can always encourage them. Karen, she does a lot more of the medical stuff because I do a lot more like mindset, emotional. She does a lot of medical stuff. She's telling people, go get your blood work done. Go get screened for cancer. Like, go get checked for diabetes. Like, the medical field is not our enemy. We are working with them here to help serve the population. And they have some great diagnostic tools that we should absolutely be referring clients to if they have concerning health issues. So I'm just throwing that out there. This is something I always tell my people. You don't have to do their treatment plan, but you can utilize their diagnostic tools. You don't have to do anyone's treatment plan that you don't want to do. Like, you have health autonomy. So go get there. Getting a doctor's opinion can be great. And getting two doctor's opinions is even better than one. So get a doctor's opinion, and then at least you have that. You have another option in your option bank of how to move forward. So I'm just throwing that out there. Great test that can be run, and then you can share someone's story if you have their permission and they remain anonymous. Cool. So have any of you guys ever had a story shared about you that you wish was not shared about you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like can be very humiliating or dehumanizing. So this is just to protect the people we're working with, so that they never feel like they're being talked about. So cool. Last part. Okay. So the next part on what you cannot. You cannot tell someone they do have something. You cannot tell someone they don't have something. So what this means is if you're doing a scan and the insulin marker section pops up and they have all greens, you can't be like, oh, good, you're in the clear. You probably don't have diabetes. Does that make sense? Yeah. So why would that be just as bad as telling someone they do have something? Well, maybe on this day, their markers were actually lying. Maybe they've been intermittent fasting and they don't have inflammatory markers or insulin spikes in their bloodstream at that moment. Or maybe they're in a state of homeostasis at that time being. But we don't ever want to discourage someone from taking as much precaution as possible. Why did I decide to start off with the most boring part of this whole conference?
Because we're going to practice it.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Because we're going to practice it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you want to go over this when we're in our breakout sections, we can practice this. Okay, obviously you cannot adjust their medication in any way. But low key, off the record, I have had mom muscle test stuff for me. I was in Taiwan, just to get a second opinion. I was in Taiwan. I had some antibacterial and antiviral creams that I was putting on this like random outbreak I got. And she muscle tested it, and it was only slightly off from what the doctor said, but it was just really cool. She could muscle test from the other side of the world. So, but anyway, don't alter anyone's medication. That's the bottom line. Don't delay them in seeking medical care or getting medical advice. So you'll see that at the bottom of a lot of disclaimers, like, oh, seek the advice of your physical provider. Sometimes that might feel awkward for you to say in your writing because you're like, I believe in alternative medicine. I believe in holistic health. But what that means is like there's definitely going to be a time and place. If you have a diabetic patient, type 2 diabetes, and they want to start intermittent fasting, but their current medications are telling them, they're taking a medication in the morning that's going to lower their blood sugar levels, and then they intermittent fast and they don't eat till 1 or 2 in the afternoon, that could be really dangerous for them. They could have too low blood sugar levels, right? Because their medications are affecting it. So it is a good idea to run certain lifestyle things past their physicians. And then also, like we already reiterated, rather know earlier than later. And if I could show you guys the epidemiological data on how big of a difference it makes to catch something earlier than later when it comes to cancer, diabetes, any disease. I don't care how you treat it. Knowing about it sooner than later is going to help your client and going to help yourself if that's you. Like especially the cancer data. Like, please just don't wait to find out. It can be really scary. Some people don't want to know what diagnosis they have because they don't know what they can do. It's overwhelming. It's a big reason people, when they do epidemiological data and they survey the population, why do you wait to seek medical care? A very common answer is, I don't want to know what I have. I don't want to know because it's scary. They're like, I don't know what am I supposed to now pay for expensive medications for the rest of my life? Live in fear of dying of this disease? They're like, I'd rather not know and just be happy. So that's a real thing because we're not taught how to be empowered about the diseases that we encounter in our life. So this is just to say, if there's any way you can verbally encourage people to give them the confidence to face that, to face their health situation. The same way we got to face our finances and face our relationships, like face your health and just let them know you're going to be there for them, but they really would benefit by knowing sooner than later. So if you look at the charts, the survival rates of diseases, the earlier you catch it, it's almost always better. And not just by a little shot, by a long shot. So I'm off my soapbox on that, but I'm just saying we got to encourage good collaboration there. Last 3 points. One, you cannot give specific nutrition or supplement advice in certain states without a PMA. So Karen has her people sign a private membership agreement. This says this is like a legal entity that allows you to, is there an echo or is that just me? It's a legal agreement that allows you to speak freely with someone without, under the agreement that there will be no like suing, and also under the understanding that there's no doctor-physician relationship. So she operates like that because she gives very specific advice, but in a lot of states you just want to be careful about that. And also you can phrase things differently, like use like in the can section instead of in the can section. You don't want to be telling people like cut out all your carbohydrates and do keto and take this much of this supplement and that and do this immediately. Awesome. Last 2 points. You cannot collect personal health information without storing it properly, and you cannot share their personal information with others, even their name. You're not even legally allowed to say, oh yeah, I work with Jeanette. Oh yeah, she comes and see me. That's not even legal. People, other people shouldn't know who's coming to see you for your services, because that's still implying some type of health condition or some type of health or medical relationship. So you can't even like say, oh yeah, I see them, they're my client. You know what I mean? How awkward would that be if it's like you do like really specific services and, you know, I'm saying. So glad we could cover that. Was this helpful to be reminded of? A little bit, just to come at the very beginning. Cool. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page about that. There are ways to protect yourself. We have our accreditation. So there's certain insurance companies you can carry insurance through. Like there's somewhere it's like $100 a month. If you're one of our health coaches or TNCs, you learn about that. But there's certain insurance plans you can carry for like $100 a year that will protect you up to $1 million. Signing disclaimers is the easiest way to do it. Having them sign a waiver and disclaimer at the start of meeting with you that says, hey, I understand there's no doctor-physician relationship. I release you from all liability from anything that could happen from working with you, including but not limited to death, injury, malfunction, loss of limbs, blah, blah, blah. That's really extreme. Anyway. And then verbally covering yourself. But the written one's going to be the number one way to protect yourself, and PMAs. So just want to cover that at the very beginning. I think that is good. Good, we're on the dot for setting expectations. So is there anything else you wanted to set expectations about?
Well, we were going to teach them the words they can use so they can practice with those.
Okay, you want to come on then? Okay.
No, me? I always get it wrong.
So, yes.
So there's words you're not supposed to use, but there's a way around it. So many years ago, the FDA came out and said, okay, now you can no longer title your classes like how to eliminate inflammation. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to teach a class on inflammation? So I was like, how to not be puffed up. You know, and so like I was adding things up all the time, and people would look at my titles, and I think that's why they came, because like, what are you going to talk about today? You know, so whatever. So I'm probably the very wrong person. I'm like, you're going to do this part, because I always say, okay, this is what I recommend, and here's what you want to do, and you know, and so I've had to learn not to say, okay, we can treat you, because of course you can't say that now. And so instead, there are many ways around this, and having health food stores. We have 2 health food stores, 2 cafes, 3 wellness centers is what we do, right? And we got around it by saying, historically speaking, okay, it's one of your favorite ones, maybe always use that. Historically speaking, otherwise, well, I've heard, or Karen's had success with, or I have found, or one of my clients, or I did well with. So kind of look for a way to make it so vague that they actually have no idea what you're saying, but they totally get what you're saying. When I do my consultations for you, when I do my testing, you will hear exactly, I'm going to literally treat whoever I'm treating, I'm going to literally work with the person that I'm scanning as if they were just someone walking in my office. So you're going to hear how I introduce the PMA. I always tease that you're just joining a society where we're not part of the sewer system. Sewer system. So we're a private club and we're super fun. So like it's fun. Anyhow, and so, but I do give very specific recommendations, and that's my style, right? And because they're a member of the private membership association, I can be a bit more lenient. It is recorded. I allow them to record everything I say, because I do talk this fast for an entire hour when I'm with them. And I do let them know what I recommend for 6 months. That's my style. And so, but getting around those words, we want you to use those words as you're working with each other during the breakout session. So everybody on Zoom, same thing. When you're meeting with people, you want to jump in and be like, okay, so historically speaking, or maybe you could try, or maybe an idea. So again, you'll find what comes out naturally for you. And that's just what I wanted to throw in there.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, and if historically speaking sounds like it's outdated, because I just realized, I was like, if someone's talking historically speaking, I feel like, I don't want to know what happened in history, buddy. I want to know what's happening now.
But last week, historically speaking.
No, it's talking about what you've been learning, or like new research. You're always allowed to teach. That's the fun part. Just teach them how the body works, and they'll make their own decisions. That's like my life goal. Is like, I think that this whole like live in a world where you need to run away from disease and get artificial vaccinations, RNA stuff to avoid how our bodies are supposed to like naturally process the whole world. I'm like so frustrated living in the system right now that I have one goal, and it's to teach people how their bodies work so well that they can smell the bullshit themselves. That they can like, like teach them how their body works so well they already know. Like, wow, this model doesn't make sense. Like this model doesn't make sense. And so that's why I'm really excited. We're gonna talk a lot about the microbiome, a lot about our body's natural defense mechanisms, because we're naturally supposed to encounter all these scary things out there, but we're losing our body's natural mechanisms of staying strong. We're not getting the same nervous system stimulation. We're not having the same preservation of our microbiome due to all the chemicals we're exposed to. We're not getting the same type of lung health that we used to have back in the day. So that's what we're gonna be focusing, how to restore the body's systems that will protect and serve you for the rest of your life, instead of how to avoid everything that could ever be evil. Cool. Awesome. So now we're moving on to our next section. I'm going to give Debbie a second here to stop the recording and start it again in the new section. So we'll just give that 1 minute, and I'm going to check the chat section.
So again, this is being recorded. So those of you who are in attendance will get it. You'll be allowed to come in. It'll be in the library.
Our next part on electron entanglement. So Karen's actually going to start this one off. She's so passionate when she talks about electrons and cells and frequencies and quantum physics. So we're going to go ahead and get this started, and then I'll chirp in.
So I'm not kidding you. Literally right before we started, Mom, are you sure you want to start with electrons? You probably want, I'm like, no, we are getting to the heart of this right now. This is all about energy. And so we're talking about energy. So it was awesome. So the atom is, everything is atomic, right? Because everything is made of atoms. You have up to 200 trillion atoms in every cell in your body. So if we're going to be teaching people and educating them how the body works, we can't start without talking about atoms. And so don't freak people out. If you have this, and I have my periodic table of elements poster over here. I'm just going to show it to you really quick because it hangs in my office, and I want you all to buy one. Number one, you look really impressive, but when you can explain it, you're even more impressive, right? Like, this is how you function. This is what you're doing. You are going to be looking for products that can contain a various amount of these different elements that will help the body, right? And so when we're talking about atoms, I want you to understand this poster. There is so you have an atom, which is the basic building block of everything. In your atom, you have a nucleus. What's inside the nucleus? Protons and neutrons. A proton is positively charged, a neutron is neutral. And then what do you have spinning around the atom, the nucleus? Electrons. If there's one electron, you have hydrogen. If there's two electrons, you have helium, right? So hydrogen, helium, lithium, boron, right? So if you have 19 electrons, you have potassium. If you have 20 electrons, you have calcium. If you have 12, you have magnesium. So like, this is super important because this is what you eat. Not all of it, you'd explode. But there's a lot of things in here that you need because they have a different energetic quality. So if you have 12 electrons orbiting, there we go. Thank you. If you have 12 electrons orbiting an atom, then that's going to give a vibration that is different than 19 atoms that are vibrating around that nucleus. So now you can see, as we can start combining those, we are going to be creating, so we go from elements, right, to molecules, to compounds, to cells, to tabletops, to glasses, right, to beautiful sweaters like your green one. Like, all sorts of wonderful things are built out of atoms. Everything is. Now, if you are looking to detect an atom or an element, you can do so by using a metal detector, right? You go outside, put electricity in you put a frequency into the ground looking for copper or aluminum or oil or gas. It's always fun when I visit with my people from Wyoming. I do a lot of testing for people in Wyoming, and they're like, oh, that's how we find oil. I'm like, okay, so this wasn't exciting for you. No, we do it all day. I'm like, okay, but usually it's exciting, you know? You're like, wow. So literally, talking to the choir out there, you are sending frequencies into the ground and you're getting a feedback. So if we understand that now moving forward over the next 3 days, at the end of the third day, this will be your language, because there's a lot we're going to talk about here in a few minutes more on atoms. So energy, so an atom, you can actually affect other atoms. We know that, right? So if the atoms are in our body, so if we have a cell in our body, and we want to affect that cell, we can eat something, drink something, put something on our skin, we can breathe something in, and it's going to trigger activity at the cell level or at the atomic level. Well, you can actually trigger the atoms in somebody else, right? by your thoughts, and we'll do some cool experiments later, by our thoughts, right? And so we can have a lot of wonderful thoughts towards somebody, and that can help them heal. That can help them have a great day, right? We can have negative thoughts towards somebody, and it totally ruins their life, right? And so that's something we need to become very, very compassionate about, because when you talk about physics and quantum physics, there's a great thing called entanglement. And entanglement is so important to understand. It's my favorite thing to talk about, because entanglement is understanding that once my atoms, so if you imagine these trillions of atoms in every single cell of my body, and I have 50 to 70 trillion cells in my body, I'm like a big atomic Karen walking around. Oh, Zuzu. I can't be Karen anymore because Karen's a bad word. So Zuzu walking. You know, and now, so I'm a big atomic Zuzu walking all around, right? And if I come up and I'm like standing close to Ella, and I even hug Ella, which I've done years ago, well, now some of my electrons have hooked up with Ella's electrons, and these orbits connect. They become entangled. Now I'm hooked up to Ella for forever if she wants that, right? And so Ella and I have been connected for many, many years. My children, Amy and I, have been connected since she was conceived, right? Because she's been in my body, absorbing all of my electricity, my energy. So if I'm having the best day ever, Amy, little baby in my belly, was having the best day ever. If I'm really stressed out about something, Amy's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with mommy? And then she's not going to make all of the hormones that are necessary for her body to grow and develop. And I could talk for hours on this, because fetal development is completely dependent on the stress level, the electrical level, like as in how much electricity or Wi-Fi, and what types of electrical wavelengths are coming towards that baby in the womb. Those are all extremely validating. But we need to be aware that our energy, our love, our hate, our feelings, our expressions not only affect a baby inside of us, but they affect anybody who lives with us. They affect the people that we work with. They affect people we go to church with. They affect everyone. So that's why you can kind of sometimes go through a city and you can just feel a really weird vibe. Have you ever done that before? Oh my gosh, eh? You can all think of a city right now that there's just a really weird vibe. And then all of a sudden you might go back 17 years later and lights have gone up and a library's been built, and you go through like, wow, the city really changed, right? What changed in the city? Did the library change it or the lights? No. The people who are like, let's improve the city. Let's all get together. Let's build things and make the city look great again. And this energy went into the city that literally transformed it energetically. And now those types of people are going to move to the city. Does that make sense? So if we can understand it on a global level, right, then we can understand it in this global level. So if we can use electricity to improve our own cell health, if we can donate electrons where there's electrons missing in our body, well, then what is our cell response going to be? Hey, thanks for the electron. I was missing that, right? So if we can start taking care of our own energy, our own electricity, what is it going to do for Ella when Karen gets happier and happier and happier and is really being ambitious and doing all these wonderful things? Well, we're connected, right? Now, Ella can either be like, yeah, I love being connected with Karen. We have so much fun together and we just love each other, right? Blah, blah. Or at some point, Ella can be like, that's a little too much for me now. I'm really feeling sad about life, and I'm going to go eat McDonald's potato chips, which is never eat. They're fried, by the way. Ask me after class. But anyhow, like I'm going to go and kind of go down this road, and now all of a sudden the foods, the things she's putting in her mouth, putting on her skin, right, smelling, are going to affect her overall energy level, her entire atomic level. And then all of a sudden she's going to be a little bit over here, and I might be, not that she would ever eat a French fry, I'm just putting it out there, and I'll be a little bit over here, right? Or vice versa. I get addicted to McDonald's French fries. I'm really on a kick of that. No, I'm never eating one of those. But anyhow, and then all of a sudden, we aren't, we're still sharing, but there's not a lot of communication going back and forth. So this is so important, because every one of your clients who comes to you is sick, or most of them, 90% of them. Some just want to kind of see where they're at. Because they are ill. We're going to talk a lot about this on Saturday morning. We're going to talk about a lot of bioresonance and emotions and how it affects them. We need to understand, as those that are testing and working with them, that we have to ask about their environment. We need to ask about their work environment, their home environment. And then I want you to understand the science enough of the AO unit, the Healy, whatever unit you're using, that you will understand that, oh my gosh, in my hands, I have this piece of equipment that I can send frequencies into their cells and I can change and at least enhance atomically what is going on in their body. Do you understand the power that you have? That can be used for great good and it can be used for great harm if you don't do that correctly. And so I will share with you experiences of both because I've been able to do both, screw up and then succeed, right? So hello, welcome to society. And so we just want you to understand that as we talk these next 3 days, we will be sciencey. That's just who we are. And that's why you get a recording, right? But we also want you to understand how to use this, like use the information you're learning over the next 3 days. At the day you leave, so Monday when you do your next scan, I want you so empowered that there's no reason, number one, you're not charging twice as much as what you're charging right now. But at least number two, because you're going to send them home knowing information. You're going to send them home wanting to learn more information. They're all going to want my book just because it's just how your body works in one book, but they're all going to desire it. You want them to leave so excited about learning this much that they want to learn this much, and then they keep coming back to you. And that's what I teach. So yeah, I don't do coaching because I'm way type A. I'm like, oh, well, why are you eating that? I told you it was pathetic 2 minutes ago. What the heck are you taking away from? No. She's like, I told you that was bad to eat 14 months ago during my consultation. That's what I eat that now. I'm like, here's your problem. That's right. Okay, so I'm picking on McDonald's French fries because I just have to tell you why. Because a study came out. You know how McDonald's French fries are perfectly white? Do you know the chemical that they use when they actually grow? And this is what affects you. Just think about this. They're using such a powerful chemical that no brown lines can be grown in the potatoes, in the farming fields for McDonald's potatoes, right? Well, not only that, so then they harvest them with this toxic chemical that's been sprayed the entire time the potatoes are growing. They literally put those potatoes in huge warehouses that for off-gassing for an extended amount of time where no one can even walk into the room, right? Because the off-gassing could severely harm you. And then they just chop them up and fry them for you. And I'm just saying, like, can you think of the atomic and the molecular frequency of that French fry and how that can affect the people that are eating it? And so that's why I'm picking on McDonald's today. I just read a cool thing on it. So it was Snickers the last time I presented. Okay, so whatever it is, I'm just going to let it out there. Anyhow, now we wanted to talk a bit more about energy and about quantum physics. There was a study done back in 1977 where they actually took an atom and they split it and they sent it to do 14 miles each direction. And when they sent it 14 miles away, they put them in boxes, like metal boxes, which electricity is not supposed to go through metal, correct? Well, they found if they applied a scenario to one electron, it would do the exact same thing 14 miles away in a metal box because they were interly connected. They were one with each other. So if we look at quantum entanglement, which has been spoken, even Albert Einstein knew something was going on. His theories and what he brought to the surface was about 75 accuracy. Then we went up to 85 accuracy. And now we can really use quantum physics and see an incredible relativity between what happens to one person's electrons and they've been intimately connected to another person's electrons and will affect them. And I have many, many stories of that. I want to share one or two of them really quick because it's super important because we are going to be working together in this environment. And that was, we have twins, Eric and Emily are twins. By the way, our videographer is married to Emily. So that's my second. And Eric and Emily were, Eric was down in Florida, and Emily was up in Idaho. And Emily calls and she's like, Mom, she's like, something is wrong. Like my leg, like I'm just having this problem with my leg. I can't get it to get uncrampy. I've prayed about it. I can't, nothing, blank. I'm like, oh, well, we should check with Eric, right? Well, Eric was serving a mission for his church. And so we wrote Eric a letter and boom, came back. Yeah, I actually got hit by a car in that leg and I couldn't get rid of the pain. And so here's Emily in Idaho and Eric down in Florida. And that, we've had that happen so many times. Another time, probably one of my favorite stories, well, there's so many favorite stories, and I want to mention this because you'll now go, oh my gosh, that happened to me. Oh, that happened to me. So we had a young gentleman, his name was Justin, and he would fix all of our computers in our wellness center and in our cafe, Wisconsin. So we had a grocery store, wellness center, and he would fix all the computers all the time. And there was one day, I was up in the medical center and our ultrasound machine wasn't working properly. And I'm like, okay, the computer system was down. And then like my other computer went down. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I didn't even think about calling Justin because I was like just panicking because I had these clients coming in, trying to get computers, working, all the electronics working. Not kidding. 3 hours later, while I'm still in panic mode, trying to get these working, and Justin shows up. I haven't seen him in 8 months. And I'm like, Justin, he goes, I just felt something was off. Do you need me? And I'm like, he drove 40 minutes just to come up because he was like getting this. Karen's going crazy. Karen's going crazy. Karen's going crazy. Of course, he always stays for dinner when he comes, so he probably could have been hungry. But anyhow, I'm sure it was because he knew what was going on. And so you're going to have that happen when you pick up the phone and like, the person you were just thinking about is right there on the phone, right? And those kind of things happen because of entanglement. And it's exciting when we see all the positive things, but it's also really hard when there's sadness, right? How many of you drive by an accident and immediately you're entangled with those people and you're like, okay, I need to pray. How many of you have done that? Raise your hand. Exactly. We feel that and we want them to be well because we're now in this entangled area of people that are coming to the rescue and other cars stopping. And many of you actually have tears in your eyes right now because we've been through that. We want other people to do well. That's why we know social media and the media, they have it all wrong. The people they're talking about on the media, those are human beings, okay? We know what society is like. Society is a loving, beautiful place to be existing. Everyone you see, you can love. So I have my new teeth. Have you all noticed my beautiful teeth? I know, aren't they lovely? Okay, so we'll talk about that later. But anyhow, I was like, awake for 5.5 hours while they were doing all this exciting stuff to my mouth, right? And afterwards, I still had some of the chemicals they put in me. I'm like, okay, I know how to get stuff out of my bloodstream, exercise. I'm like, okay, so I'm like, I can barely move my mouth. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go for a walk for 2 miles or 3 miles, right? So I call my ride. I'm like, I'm just gonna walk for a few miles. I'll meet you up at Zupa's, right? And she's like, Zupa's? I'm like, hey, trust me, I'm walking. And I start walking. I decide, I'm just gonna lighten the day. So I start waving with my beautiful teeth to everybody. Hi, hello. And all I do are waving, big truck drivers and all the people. I was waving as I walk along to everybody. And who felt better? All the people waving at me in their cars or me? Like I was getting it all back, right? Because they all saw one woman waving, right? I saw 1,000 people waving. So how am I going to feel? And I think that's the neat thing about quantum entanglement is that we get entangled with everyone that we're around, everything that's around, right? So if you walk into a hotel room and you know that this is not the room you need to be in, then you don't want to be there because who knows who was there before you, who had anger, who was really sick, who was just, and then you're going to be in that energy field of anger and frustration, and you're going to absorb that. You can't see electricity, but that does not mean it doesn't exist, right? And that's what I want you to understand with every fiber of your being, that when you use an AO unit, when you use a Healy, when you use any of the electrical devices you possibly can think of, you have the power to improve someone's life. You have the power to help their cells reconnect, not only at a physical level for their organs, which we're going to talk about next, but emotionally. You are literally, how many of you have listened to Inner Voice and have been like, and have even cried after the first, minute of it? You just feel those frequencies go into the body and you feel like you have a friend and it's just music. You feel that comfort, right? And that's what we're excited to share with you today is how to use this unit and then how to understand the body so you can do them hand in hand and not only improve the people's lives that come to you. Remember, you'll see one person come, they're going to come and they're going to see you and be like, oh, I just love meeting with Annetta. I'm doing great. But then Annetta has 5,000 people come over the next 3 years. She's gotten the benefits because now Annetta has worked with all of these people. So who is most excited to share this with you is me, right? Well, I don't know. Amy's off the wall, right? I'm excited. But anyhow, she can't even sleep with her. But because I really want for all of you to be in the box that I'm in because I love appointments. They come in and I'm like, it's Christmas. I'm so excited because I never have any idea what I'm going to find, right? But what I do know is that I have the ability to help them. I always have. I've never, ever not been able to help somebody. That's 13 years of experience saying that. And that has been a tremendous feeling because you may not be able to resolve the biggest issue they're dealing with, but you are going to be able to help them resolve the issues they're dealing with that have led to this big issue. And that's where you're going to leave here today, empowered, knowing, because understanding a cell, that's easy. Understanding the liver, it's easy. Understanding the circulatory system, this is not hard. I'm sorry. Everyone who's ever told you the human body is hard to understand, they don't understand the human body. The human body is amazing. It is the most amazing machine and the most amazing gift that we could ever have been given. And to understand how it works, it's not that hard. And I want you to know that. It gets scary when you see every single artery to the brain, and then there's more to the head, right? Like we go, it doesn't matter, because if it's affecting arteries to the entire body, here's what to do. And it'll help every single artery in the body, right? And that's what we're excited for. Let's get started. Yeah, I'm the biggest one.
Yeah,
So cells, or what do you know?
I'm going to follow up on electron
down.
entanglement. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's
No, so it was really cool seeing how my mom's style changed with clients over the years. Because when it first started out, it was all internal. It was like, girlfriend, you need more vitamin D, you need to eat more raw foods, get those enzymes going. Yeah, take 2 dropperfuls of this tincture morning and night, 7 to clear up that infection if you want that to go away fast. It was like very internal. And it really morphed into this setting where she's like, I'm so sorry, but we got to talk about your marriage right now. Like, are you guys communicating? You can be a therapist. Like, don't be a therapist if you're not a therapist. But she will bring up, like, what's your home environment like? Like, how is it like, she will never do that she will never do that without explaining electron entanglement though. So I'm going to give you guys the best version I have of how to explain electron entanglement to a client. I'm about to give that to you, but I'm just sharing with you really quick. She creates this setting in her scans where she can talk about how does the TV affect you? How's your, like the kids, your home life, the frequencies around you, because it is all affecting you. And that's been so cool to see, because that has really helped connect people to the healing journey they need to be on. Whether that's like seeing additional therapists or cleaning up their house or painting their walls or going through that closet that they've been avoiding opening for 10 years because it's got their deceased mother's relics in it. That's all part of someone's healing journey. So this is my favorite way to explain electron entanglement, because after you explain electron entanglement, all of a sudden these questions or these conversations with clients are going to feel a lot less random and invasive. So this is how I put it. Do you remember when we were going to school and we were taught that the atom is like a solar system? Remember, like you have the nucleus in the middle with your protons, and then the electrons orbit. And it looked like a solar system, like it was like a perfect circular orbit, right? You guys remember that picture? So that's actually changed. They teach a different model now in college chemistry. I don't know if it's reached elementary schools and all that yet, but at least at the collegiate level, I remember getting a college chemistry class and they're like, hey, that model, it's actually old. The electrons do not follow a specific orbit. In fact, they're so irregular. They might make a figure 8 with another nucleus. They might stretch outside of the atmosphere and come back. They've proven these electrons, it's called an electron cloud, okay? It works like a cloud that swells up and then comes back. It swells up and comes back. So we know that, atoms create frequencies, and we used to think it just did this perfect circular thing, but now this is what creates the frequency, is this cloud is expanding out and in and out and in. And somehow those clouds expand out and in and out and in and out and in, and other clouds expand a little bit slower. And these are what creates frequencies. So I say, these electron clouds, when molecules bind to each other, or atoms bind to each other to form a molecule, that is what's happening. They start to share the same electron cloud. And then molecules bond with other molecules, and then those molecules share the same electron cloud. This tablecloth, they're doing like a whole electron cloud thing right now. That's why it's staying together, because all those molecules are sharing the same electron cloud. They're binding. So this is what's so significant about us humans. It's like when you're like, oh, we're totally bonding right now, like you go blow up an air mattress and then jump on it out in the middle of the lake with your best friend and float off in the middle of the lake. You're like, oh, we're bonding right now. No, literally, you're starting to share electrons. You're in an electron cloud with someone. I think it's so funny we use the word bonding with each other. We're like, oh, we're bonding. Because I'm like, that's such a scientifically accurate way to put it. Because really, you start to share an electron cloud with people. And obviously, one good thing to cover at some point in this conference would be shielding for those of us who are empaths and don't want to absorb every single frequency we're encountered with in a day. Shielding is a skill set that can be learned. I did not learn about it until this year. And 2020 was so miserable for me. I'm gonna start crying, but I'm not. Because I didn't have those skill sets yet. And I was just like open heart Amy taking on the weight of the world. So learning how to have some healthy boundaries for our energy would be a really good conversation topic for later. Anyway, so when I'm explaining electron clouds to people and why the environment matters is I'm like, hey girlfriend, like we all got this electron cloud thing going on. And it's really cool telling people that you can bond to other people. They've done this with married couples. Well, if they started off with your own cells, they would like take a cell off your arm, put it in a petri dish, and then they would do something to you and look at your cell under the petri dish and it would react. When they like zapped you or when they did some type of stimulus to your body, your cell would react because it's still electrically in a cloud. They started doing it with married couples. They would like split married couples up by sometimes miles. And they would do something to one of the spouses and the other spouse, they would hook up the biofeedback to study like neurological reactions in the brain. The other spouse would react at the same time they did something to one spouse. So I know this isn't surprising to all of you who have like picked up the phone at the same time someone else is thinking about you or wanted to text someone and found out they were having a bad day. This is like the most fun way to live because I like this past weekend I like woke up and texted a girlfriend randomly. I was like, hey, I was just thinking about you. How are you doing? And she's like, wow, I like don't know if I've ever needed you more in my life. And I happened to be in the same state as her, which was like, I was on the way to Wisconsin this weekend, 3 days ago. So I like went up and spent the day with her. We actually loaded up an air mattress and floated out in the middle of the lake. So in case you guys are wondering what therapy sessions with Amy look like, you can book them anytime. But anyway. So that was like so cool though. I call it what you want. Promptings of the Holy Spirit, electron entanglement. I'm just like listening to those little inklings. So powerful. So that's one way that I like explaining electron entanglement. And so now that you explained to them, like, hey, it's actually a cloud. It comes in and out, and you are affected by the things around you. That's why talking about your environment right now is relevant. So you can always precursor with it. Like only if you're comfortable talking about this, like you do not have to talk about anything you're not comfortable talking about with me. But do you mind if I ask like how things are going in this area of your life? Or do you mind if I ask, how's your home environment? Like, how's your room right now? Does it stress you out when you walk inside your room? Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. Like everything's out of place. It's like, okay. And because you're using the AO unit, when you do the chakras, it's actually called chakra because it's Sanskrit, so chak like your friend. But the chakra section, that's the time. You can look at that because you can tell, okay, first, second, third, fourth, which of the root chakras is off. That's going to give you a big insight as to what question you want to start going into first. I just want to throw that in there because we are talking about that unit. How can you be using the unit when you bring that in? It's a perfect time to discuss. Yeah, that's awesome. So, of course, like ask questions to create a special environment with them, and always refer to a professional therapist when it's an appropriate time to do that. But this is a great way to open up the door to really talk about holistic health because that's what we're doing here, right? We're not a supplement company. Okay, we are not like, hey, your diseases are going to be solved by my super fancy line of supplements. I'm not dishing. There could be life-changing supplements. We love them. But holistic health is about the whole person. And we've since learned that the whole person is not just what's inside of you, it's what you're around. Can I hear it? Amen. Hallelujah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so just got to cover that part. So we're doing so good on time right now.
Well, we're getting into cells.
Yes, we're getting into cells. So any questions about electron entanglement or cells in general? No, not cells. We're about to get into cells. But any questions about electricity, atoms, electron entanglement? Huh?
Check questions on your phone.
Yeah. I'm going to check questions.
Awesome. And while Amy's doing that, the other part of this, which is so awesome, is that why muscle testing. All of you know that you're going to spend the next 3 days learning how to muscle test and how to dose, period. I don't care if you don't want to learn it. You don't have to. You don't have to participate. But the majority of you are going to want to learn how to do this because it is how you can find answers for yourself and for your clients and for your plants and for your dogs. It doesn't matter. So we are going to be teaching that to you because everything has an energy to it, right? And so if I'm going to pick a total copper, gold, and silver product, there's copper, gold, and silver in this product, right? And so phenomenal for my gallons and whatever else. However, this has a different frequency than a mineral supplementation is going to have, because the minerals have 95 different elements in it, and this only has 3, plus a few minerals, because he always says that. But anyhow, and so what's awesome is they found years ago now that when they would go to muscle test and do applied kinesiology to see if a product might be good for a client, they would open up the bottle, they'd take some capsules out, they dump the product from the capsules on the torso of the person, and then they would muscle test. Is this beneficial? Is this good? You're right. And then they learned, you know what, we can leave all of the product in little capsules. Okay, so they left it into capsules. Then they're like, you know what, we can just put it in the bottle. And then they left it on the bottle on the torso. Well, then they're like, well, let's just put the bottle on the shelf and see if we still get the right answers. And they could still get the shelf, right? Then they're like, well, now what if the shelf was in the other room and they could still get the answers? So what they learned is that entanglement, this theory is everything is electronic, is so real even with supplementation and with food. So that's why teaching you how to muscle test, teaching you how to do list testing, which is my favorite thing in the world to do, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. It's all energy. Everything is energy. Now, you can easily just not get correct answers by simply not being balanced yourself, not drinking enough water, because water conducts electricity, or being like, that's never gonna work, this is a stupid thing I ever signed up for, right? Like, you can have your doubts, which will put a barrier. You want to shield something, walk around all angry and mean and think no one matters. You know, that's how you'll sleep. But anyhow, and so we want to break away that so that you can see, if I'm open to all of Amy's energy, and if I'm open to the people around me and all their energy, and I'm open to learning that everything has this frequency, then when you go up to a place and you're like, okay, you're at a big buffet, what am I going to eat? What's going to be good for my body? You can just sit there and look at it, and it's going to talk to you, because you're going to feel it. You're going to feel your food. You're going to feel things that you need, because even though it might all be really healthy and great, but you don't need all of it. Or maybe you can't have enough of this right now because your body can't break it down. That's how we want you to get in tune with your body, and using the units to help you tune it up. That's going to be really, really helpful.
That's awesome.
Any questions?
No, I love it.
Okay.
All right.
Are you able to connect into this with
Yeah, I
this?
just want to pull it up first.
Okay. Excellent. How many of you have done that when you've gone to like a buffet and you're like, you feel like you want to eat something, and you know you shouldn't eat other things, even though they look really good, but you're like, no, isn't that just good? And that's just you listening to your body.
We had that exact conversation this morning.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
That exact conversation.
And it's interesting. I'll and when I do muscle testing for my clients, I'll have them, and I'll teach all this to you later throughout the conference. I'll have them bring in products, and I never want to know. I don't care if I know, but there were many times when I was learning this, I got this cord like right between my breast on part. I was playing well. I'm gonna move this in between sessions. Okay, but anyhow. So, but I remember they brought in these, and so what they did was they put their products in little plastic bags, and they just numbered them. And that's how I like doing testing, because then I never have a bias. Not that I have, no, I don't need to, because I have a bias. But I found every single product from this one company tested bad. I had no idea what I was testing. And it was the energy. Was it from the company? Was it the manufacturer? Was it the salesperson? Like, who knows? But everything has energy. And once you're able to test it, your whole world just opens up and changes. So it's cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey, Blue, do you know how to turn the TV on?
Your remote?
You do know? Okay. This is not my room. He has a big TV in his house. So he knows how to turn it on.
But no idea.
Yours is probably bigger than that, isn't it? Blue?
No.
I'm just kidding. I knew that.
Give him something to shoot for now. Give him ideas.
Debbie, do you have a place to sit? Are you comfortable?
I'm just freezing. So
You're just freezing? Okay. Okay. Are you cold? Are people cold? Should I get something out? You are? Okay.
So I can say no just because I bring other.
Yeah, no, I'll go adjust.
we get like a full body exercise when we present, so
Yeah.
it's really hard for us to
Sure.
tell temperature. Awesome. If everyone can open up to page 33, and for those of you on Zoom, we are opening up to this page of the packet that has the cell organelles on it. So we did not find a quicker fix.
No.
I feel like it was on this morning, and we like turned it off. Yeah. And we walked in here.
What page are we on, please?
Page 33.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have to do this without the big. I'm gonna go in again as long as it's. So on the bottom, yeah, I can feel like a little. Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing there. Yeah. No, that's just the. Okay.
Oh, where you point to the road.
All right. Okay, cool. So we'll see if we can get that up. So I'm going to start talking about cells for a few minutes. So atoms, they bind with each other to form molecules. Molecules bind with each other to form more complex molecules that make up our entire body. So those can be proteins, lipids, glucose molecules. We talk about molecules all the time because our whole body is just made up of molecules. And so those molecules will then combine together to form tissues, to form cells. Cells combine to form tissues and organ systems. So a cell is just like a bunch of different molecules that are working together to accomplish certain tasks in your body. So we're going to talk about different things inside and outside the cell, because having a fundamental understanding of this is going to make your understanding of the endocrine system, which produces your hormones, your central nervous system, which produces your neurotransmitters, as well as like your whole bloodstream and your immune system. This is all going to make a lot more sense when you have a great understanding of cells. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about a few of these, and then we do need the computer because I made a video analogy of the human cell as a cupcake factory. This is world-class education, everyone. I was saying, like, don't hold your breath, but it's going to blow your mind, probably. So we're going to go over a few of these fundamental first units, and then I'll show you the video. Amy? Yes. 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 Okay. We're good? Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Karen. So in our cell, keep in mind there's 200 different cell types in the human body. So most basic cells have these organelles. However, not every cell in the human body has all of these organelles, and some of them have different proportions of organelles or certain organelles that aren't listed here. So just keep in mind, 200 different cell types. Your immune cells are going to be a little bit more, there's like about 14 main different types of immune cell types, and some of them are really basic. Their job is to eat things up. So they're like giant sacks of enzymes that just come and like consume things and eat them up, and they die with the thing that they eat. So those cells might be a little bit more simple than some of the cells here. We have other cells that are more complex than this that even have more organelles, but the basic layout of the human cell is this. So I'm just going to start with the brain of the cell because that's the part most of us have heard of before, the nucleus. So the nucleus is sending a lot of messages out to the cell, telling it what to do, whether or not to open up protein channels on the membrane to let things in and out, telling the cell whether or not it's time to duplicate and replicate itself. It can even tell the cell itself to die, be like, hey, it's time for us to get out of here. It's time for us to go. Let's activate those enzymes. That's called cellular apoptosis. And so the nucleus is controlling that. And the nucleus also creates ribosomes. That happens in the nucleolus, but the ribosomes are like little protein factories. So you have tons of these little blue, what color are they on here? The ribosomes are, on here they're like pink and purple, but ribosomes are the protein factories of the cell. And so in my analogy, they're the little food trucks making cupcakes. But they're making the proteins that build your whole body, and ribosomes themselves are built in the nucleolus, in case you're curious what the nucleolus does. But your DNA is stored in the nucleus, so that's being preserved in the nucleus. Your body wants to preserve your DNA because it has your genetic coding for your entire body. Every part of your body uses a different kind of protein. You know, like my hair is made out of different protein than my skin, made out of a different protein than my liver is built out of. And so in your DNA, RNA is going to come in and code little parts of your DNA and take that out to the ribosomes to turn it into a protein. So the part that it's coding is just the part that's going to build that specific protein in your body. So it's really cool how that whole process works. We'll get into that a little bit with the video. We have the ribosomes are stored on the endoplasmic reticulum. So if you see the endoplasmic reticulum, everyone say that out loud. Endoplasmic reticulum. So one more time. Endoplasmic reticulum. Yeah, so the RUBR is where the ribosomes are stored. They're like stored right there on the endoplasmic reticulum. After the ribosomes produce their protein, those proteins are going to be sent to the Golgi apparatus. And the Golgi apparatus is like the packaging plant that's going to, thank you so much. Was it super simple? Was it a button on the side of the
Yeah.
Oh. Are you serious?
I am serious.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we have the endoplasmic reticulum, which is where the ribosomes are stored here. And then the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, I don't always know why it's given the same name as the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Maybe, I don't know why actually, because they like do something else. They synthesize steroids and cortisol. No, not cortisol, sorry, cholesterol. Different. And just like different lipid molecules. So these guys are like synthesizing stuff. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is what's housing your ribosomes. So after the proteins are made, they get sent here to the Golgi apparatus. I'm going to stand closer for the mic because we're going to be working on our sound. So then the Golgi apparatus is going to be performing quality control, and it's going to decide if these proteins are good enough or not. And if they're not good, it's going to send it out into the cytoplasm, which is just the fluid that everything in the cell is floating in, and the lysosomes. So lysosomes are going to come eat up the unwanted protein that were defect. Lysosomes also eat up bacteria and other cellular invaders. So the lysosome, picture those as like the security and waste management department of the cell. They're going to come over and eat up the bacteria, eat up the defect proteins. They're full of enzymes. So enzymes break things down, right? So they're full of enzymes. They're going to break those things down. And your lysosomes also will synthesize new things. So it really is like a recycling plant. So your lysosomes are very fascinating organelles. So from the Golgi apparatus, if the proteins pass the test, they get sent out to the cell membrane to get sent out of the body. You'll see these secretory vesicles. If you look down here at the diagram for the cell membrane, those proteins get sent out there and then they get secreted outside of the cell. And then those proteins are going to go anywhere. Like I said, it's building your whole body. Everything's made out of proteins. So we really need those ribosomes to be able to do their job well. Last thing I want to talk about is how is this thing fueled? How does it get its energy? Because a lot of these reactions require energy, and it uses a glucose molecule is too big, because some of these reactions are really small. They just need a little itsy bitsy piece of energy. So glucose molecules are massive. Lipids are even bigger than glucose. And so that's what your mitochondria do, is the mitochondria take the food you eat and break it up into teeny units of energy called ATP. And that ATP is the energy currency of your cell. So like a glucose molecule is going to turn into 32 to 34 ATP little units. Fatty acid, like a triglyceride, it's going to turn into so triglyceride is tri. So every one of those is going to turn into about like 120 to 140 units of ATP. So a triglyceride, all three, is going to produce over 400 units of ATP. So fat is much more energy dense. It also takes a lot longer to break that down. It takes a lot more oxygen to break down a lipid than it does a glucose molecule in your mitochondria. So that's why glucose, let me know if I'm going too fast, but this is why glucose is the fastest and easiest thing to burn in your body. So when your body goes into fight or flight mode, all your body wants to burn is glucose, because that stuff doesn't take as much oxygen, doesn't take as much time. Your mitochondria can have that in and out, like lickety split it, like whoop, glucose molecules will get split up into however many different molecules of ATP. It can be used right away in the cell. That is a big reason why women and men who are under stress constantly have a hard time with weight loss, because your body will not burn fat if you're in fight or flight mode. Because if you're in fight or flight mode and you need to be go, 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 your body's like, we got to have quick energy, burn glucose. It's not going to be burning up your fat storages. Does that make sense? How relevant is this? This is so cool. So cool. I love it. So your mitochondria is responsible, they say it's the powerhouse of the cell, responsible for taking the food you eat and turning it into energy currency that your cells can use. So different things that require energy in the cell would be like synthesizing molecules, like making new proteins, letting things in and out of the cell. That can take energy. Creating heat so that we're alive, that uses like, I think 40%. Between 40 and 60%, I forget, of our energy is used just to be warm. So that's fun. But yeah, that's what your mitochondria do. And your mitochondria require a lot of oxygen. So this is why exposure to certain viruses and pathogens that inhibit your mitochondria's ability to use oxygen start to shut your whole body down. So for example, people who are exposed to mold and have experienced mold toxicity, those mold particles are causing the alveoli in their lungs to restrict so much. They're not getting the oxygen that they need. So their mitochondria aren't getting the oxygen. The mitochondria start to shut down. Now all their cellular functions start to shut down. And that's why something like mold toxicity can be a precursor to like, I don't even know how many different body dysfunctions can happen, from like hormonal dysregulation to weight gain to psychological issues, like so many mental health issues that people are getting diagnosed with today are related to a virus, a bacteria, or mold. So many of them. Because you get a pathogen in your body that's starting to wreak havoc and affect your mitochondria, you're not going to be able to think straight. Your tissues aren't going to be able to heal fast. You're going to bruise. It's going to last forever. So that's why this part can sound a little scary. I'm just saying it comes down to the cell, because we want to protect the cell. We want to get the cell as much oxygen as possible. And the cool part is your cells do regenerate. In fact, your mitochondria are one of the only organelles in your own body that contain their own DNA. So they don't even need the nucleus. It's like when the government thinks they control business, but like big business controls everything. That's like what the mitochondria are. Like the nucleus is like the government unit of the body. It's like, we would like to import that molecule, and we would like to enact this executive decision, and your mitochondria is just going to overrule it whether or not it's making money or not. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's like a good analogy, because your mitochondria really is like ruling the cell. It's got its own DNA. It's going to be replicating on its own. So we really want to protect the mitochondria. I'm just going to make sure, I'm just going to check the chat section. Woo! There is a lot going on right now. Okay, as long as there's nothing pressing, I'm going to read these in a minute.
Why this is so important is if you can explain to your clients how cells function, you're theirs for life. If you can tell them the why, and that's the most important thing, is to understand the why. It's one thing to go home with a list of supplements, but if they don't understand why, like how many of you are like, oh my gosh, I totally get why mold is now so important, right? Then that just happened, right? That's why we want you to understand the cell. Now, the really neat part about the cell, and Amy has the coolest thing to share with you in a little bit. She's like super excited about this analogy she's put together in this video. But why the cell is so important for you to understand is so that you can, in every time you talk about an organ or an organelle, you bring it back to that cell. So they get that everything that they eat, drink, put on their skin, and breathe, and say that all the time. Everything you eat, write it down. Everything you eat, drink, put on your skin. So eat, drink, put on your skin, or breathe is going to affect the cell, period. There's nothing that you eat, drink, put on your skin, or breathe that doesn't affect the cell. And if you can get that to your clients, and that can be your tagline. I don't care, every one of you have the same tagline. You know?
What about thinking?
What's that?
When they think.
Oh, absolutely thinking. Yeah, thinking is definitely it. Yeah, all your thoughts 100% effective. Absolutely. And thank you for reminding me about that, but absolutely. But those things are affecting that cell. They're affecting the mitochondria. They're affecting the output of the cell. They're affecting if the cells stay stuck together and congratulated, or if they separate. So you all wake up in the morning, and a lot of you, your cells will be a bit more stuck together because it's the morning, and we've been excreting, right? We're in elimination, so there's a lot of stuff stuck together. You wake up, you drink water, use some essential oils, and go exercise. All your cells separate. Oh man, did you need some boron today? I got some I can send to you. But if you don't wake up, you drink your water, exercise, use some essential oils, you're like, I need boron, but no one can hear me, right? So okay, you can take over.
No, I love it. I love it.
If you ever need to check it, I'll just jump in and fill. I can be the
Yeah,
filler.
thank you. I just reviewed it real quick. Someone asked if a lot of mold comes up on someone's skin, if you would ever recommend that they do a mold test at home. Absolutely. So Jennifer, what's the fact on this? 50% of homes have some kind of mold issue. 40-50% of homes have a mold issue. However, Jennifer's got to fact check me on this. It's only like a third to a fourth of the population that has the genetic disorder that makes them hypersensitive to mold. Okay, so a lot of homes have mold issues going on because in the 1970s we started sealing up our houses and changing our regulations, where you no longer had to put this thick rubber mat down at the foundation of your house. You used to build the foundation, put this thick rubber mat, and then build your house. They got rid of that. And now you can build right on the ground. So you got mold coming up on the ground, and then we've like hyper sealed our houses. This is a more recent thing to be really energy efficient. Our houses are not breathing. Big issue. So it's somewhere, I forget what, I'm going to just check and see if Jennifer's got those facts for me on what percent. 50% of homes have issues and half of those have toxic mold. Okay, so 50% have some kind of mold issue, half of those, like 25%, have some kind of toxic mold issue. And so, and then you're looking at like a quarter to a third of the population having that genetic disorder or genetic predisposition of polymorphism that is making them hypersensitive to mold, okay? So just keep that in mind, because what does that mean when you run the numbers? You have someone coming to you who's dealing with hormonal issues, can't lose weight, not having enough energy, one of the biggest signs of mold toxicity. And anyone who hates exercise, don't automatically think you have a mold toxicity if this is you, but people will experience so much fatigue after a single workout because their tissues cannot re-exercise, right? So when I work out and I'm like doing push-ups, and you all heard like you get stronger because you tear your tissues down and they rebuild stronger, right? So I'm like tearing up my tissues. What's good about that process is they're going to grow back, right? That's what's going to make me stronger. If you're dealing with someone with mold toxicity, they do a workout, it fatigues them, they tear out those tissues, they're not getting rebuilt back, it can wipe them out for 2 weeks. A single workout can wipe them out for 2 weeks. So that's one of the biggest indicators of mold toxicity is their energy levels and just how much it can affect everything, psychological issues and everything else. So absolutely have them do some mold testing on their own.
And just so you know, throughout the next 3 days, I scanned myself the other day and I just gave you my results. And I did take about 10 hours to write a bunch of little cheat notes on this. Now they're handwritten, so I get that, don't worry. However, this is right. Anyhow, on the mold section, you may want to jump in there and you may want to just write on the side, like be using this all the next 3 days, right? Mold, lungs, mitochondria, limited to exercise, right? So go to your mold section. This would be, it's page 26 of the scan, which is the line section there.
Page 29? Yeah, page 29 of the packet.
Okay, and 26 of the scan.
Okay.
But just like write notes in here. I'll explain why it's handwritten when we get to this point. But I'm just thinking right now, as you're learning things, like, oh my gosh, that has to do with mold. So just write it on there.
What were you saying to write before we were?
Anywhere you want to write it. It doesn't matter. This is your cheat sheet.
No, I'm saying, what was it that we were writing?
Write down, do a treatment on the lungs, do the respiratory system, talk to them about their environment, maybe order a mold test. So we want you to know and to use the information that you're learning the next 3 days to help you with your testing. So we're going to refer back to these pages all the time. And so for mold, write those few things down. We do have a mold summit that'll be coming up in fall. So you're going to learn a lot about mold. This is where hyperbaric chambers come in and are tremendously beneficial. This is when you wash your hair at night before they go to bed. If you have someone with a bunch of molds, they have to wash their hair before they go to bed.
Hair blow dry it.
And then hair blow dry it and change their pillow sheet every single night, because that mold is what they're sleeping on, and they're sleeping for 8 hours, and all the mold spores are on their pillowcases, and then they're absorbing that or on their couches. So just like be aware that this is going to affect the whole world for you, but if you can at least have some basic things that those with mold issues can do to start feeling better. Again, that's why at the end of this, you are not going to have a problem sending them to another expert, because guess what? They have a friend get sick. Are they going to go to the other person you sent them to? Nope, because how they get there through you. So we want you to understand the whole human body, how to work with other people in your environment well enough, what to do for these issues, that you can start using that AO unit even with more efficiency.
Thank you. No, I love it. Yeah, I love the idea of writing notes on the side.
And you'll see the two black molds. So the AO unit tests for 2 different types of black mold. I put them there. You'll see sometimes I put an exclamation point. That's because there's a lot more to say than there's any way I can possibly write it down there. So just want you to use it as you like.
Awesome. On that note, because we've been talking about mold for a long time, so the five main pathogens, or like groups of pathogens we talk about, and there's some overlap between fungus and is it fungus and mold? But we have bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungus, and mold. Okay, so those are what we talk about a lot. Just keep in mind, there are certain strains of bacteria and viruses that can have the same effect on the body as mold. So it's just a good thing to look for. If someone comes in and they present with like all these different things going on in their body all at once, looking at underlying pathogenic infections is going to be huge, because they could have Epstein-Barr virus that could be super throwing off everything in their body. Like certain viruses, or especially if they have some type of like mental health issue tied in with it, like totally worth running blood work scans to see if any of these weird viruses or bacteria are appearing in their blood work, can be totally worth it just to get some answers on that, because pathogens can come in and really take over the body. Cool. So last note on that before I'm going to wrap up with my cellular analogy, and then Debbie, just a heads up, we're going to be breaking into a breakout room soon so that we can practice explaining electron entanglement and cells to other people. So we're going to do a breakout room here probably in 10 minutes. So just